Hello class, Andy Nguyen here. Today I'll be presenting my critical assignment on sports psychology and collegiate male basketball players. Start off, these players are usually young adults aging from 17 to 24. They are very close to the elite level. They're like just on the cusp of it. And I chose this population because basketball has always been my favorite sport. I still play it casually to this day. I don't never play like organized basketball or anything besides like intramurals. But I just love the sport. And coincidentally enough, I work as an athletic trainer for a D1 collegiate male basketball team. Okay, so let's start off with my relevant sources. The first one is student athlete motivation. Are male college athletes intrinsically or extrinsically motivated? This study analyzed motivational dispositions of 15 to 20 male college basketball players. They utilized two different questionnaires, one being the task and ego orientation in sport questionnaire, the TEOSQ, to measure orientations and perceived reasons for participating in sport, and the USMS6, which is the utilized sport motivation scale, which measures motivation and why athletes would participate in sport. The results showed that higher scores of intrinsic motivation the results showed higher scores of intrinsic motivation compared to extrinsic motivation. So that means like they're training and participating for mastery purposes, developmental, personal enjoyment, success. And compared to extrinsic factors, including like scholarship, records, standings, and social status. Finding suggests that collegiate basketball players possess higher levels of intrinsic motivation, therefore would be more likely to perform better and give their full effort and be more engaged in the activity. Second study was the effects of an imagery rehearsal, relaxation, and self-talk package on basketball game performance. So this was a study on 4 collegiate basketball players and utilizing a 5-day intervention program with mental skills such as imagery rehearsal, relaxation, and self-talk. Imagery is basically when you have visual representations of the action, and you kind of learn off of that, and you see yourself doing it. Relaxation is the absence or reduction of voluntary action or of muscle action in voluntary muscles. And self-talk is the use of statements for like affirmation to, assert or confirm to yourself that you are ready for the task, and it's usually like encouraging positive words. The findings suggested that these all promoted performance. However, this study didn't do a great job of determining how effective each technique was. But it's evident that mental skills do affect performance in a positive way. The last relevant source I noted here was the relationships among self-compassion, stigma, and attitude towards counseling and student athletes. This is kind of just like an article inspecting the relationship between these factors and how it affects their decision to access mental health services. And the most influential factor the research found was that public stigma played a huge role, in which public stigma kind of encompasses society's general perception, in which they believe mental health is kind of linked towards people who need help, or crazy, or like they're weak, or show signs of weakness, and that's not what athletes are taught to show, like weakness or emotion. So that's a big issue with athletics and mental health. Okay, now we have some physical environment, social environment, and family culture impact. The most influential impact I found in my research was from social relationships and support, as they are a key element in promoting positive health behaviors. This can be positive or negative impact. For example, a negative impact would be like seeing someone your peer start smoking, and it kind of influences you to start smoking, or maybe you're trying to stick to this exercise routine, and maybe your friend tells you, hey, let's go out and do this instead, and kind of remove you from that routine. Or you can get positive reinforcement from like family, coaches, and partners and teammates as well. For the male collegiate basketball athlete, I figured that they may have a lack of social support, since most of the time they'd be away from home on a scholarship, playing out of town, and they must rely on their coaches, staff, even like the sports medicine team, or and teammates, just to as a social foundation for them to fall back on. And as far as physical environment, I found that just being in a home or in a way, being a visiting team or a home team plays a big difference in performance, as far as like comfortability and anxiety, or even like tournaments too, where stakes are a lot higher, or like championship games and all that stuff, playoffs, etc. Here we have some possible barriers that these athletes might come across. For money, I found that money could be, or having a small amount of money could result in lack of training resources or nutrition. I found that in a survey in 2019, it was reported nearly a quarter of D1 collegiate athletes experienced food insecurity, and almost 14% actually experienced homelessness. So having just a lack of money, I would say they would have a lack of proper nutrition for optimal performance. Social support, I put that having, like I said in the last slide, that they're being away from home, they would have a lack of support from their family if they don't keep in touch with them that often, and they rely mostly on their coaches, teammates, and coaches and teammates. Another barrier would be pain and injuries. This kind of go hand in hand. As physical barriers, they might limit someone and restricting them from doing something, especially like if we have a post-op patient, let's say a post-op ACL, common injury in basketball. They might find that it's very challenging for them just to participate in rehab and progress with it. Time, I found that it was difficult for athletes to balance practice, or athletics, homework, family time, relationships, etc. To be difficult, that could put a strain on them. And kind of going with time as well, like academic eligibility, athletes tend to not prioritize their academics over their athletic participation. They would rather focus on developing their skills, as that's what they came to their school for, especially like scholarship athletes. They they want to focus on getting better. And some factors affecting performance. I didn't write that would restrict them from exercise adherence, but I put factors that would affect performance, like on the court. First one I have was anxiety, which is a feeling of threat or worry due to an uncertainty towards an event, influencing an individual's thoughts and actions. And typically this provokes feelings of apprehensiveness, tension, discomfort, irritability, often distracting them from the task at hand and hindering performance. Research states that anxiety is one of the most frequent emotional states experienced during sports participation, and must be properly managed to reduce its negative impact on performance. that being said, we jump over to mental skills, the next one, which are cognitive strategies utilized to positively influence exercise performance by managing discomfort and promoting self-control. So I mentioned before, like strategies such as self-talk, imagery, and relaxation are all fall under this category to manage discomfort and promote self-control. Next one we have is self-regulation. This is defined as actions an individual takes to control or direct their activity through self-imposed regulations to adapt to changing circumstances. And is divided up into three categories. We have metacognitive, motivational, and behavioral. Metacognitive is described as the active process of planning, organizing, and self-monitoring during performance. Motivational is the individual's perception of them being in control of the moment and in their actions. And behavioral defines the individual's selection, structuring, and creation of an environment to promote goal-directed behavior. An example would be using self-talk to reduce pre-competition anxiety, just to manage or reduce the effect of anxiety on performance, so they can shift all their focus back onto the task at hand. And lastly, we have burnout, which is commonly shared among athletes. It is defined as the emotional exhaustion and reduced sense of accomplishment one may feel from overtraining or decreased motivation. So this one makes more sense towards elite athletes, as they typically would put in excessive amounts of training, and that would result in severe fatigue and negative attitudes towards the sport. And even we see some professional athletes retire from sports because they're pretty much just over it, because of all the stress and the demands of professional sports may bring. We can use this as critical for coaches to be able to recognize and identify and signs of burnout, and also develop better coaching strategies to reduce the chance of burnout. And they also should refrain from using physical activity as punishment. For example, like doing push-ups when you do something wrong, like you make a mistake on a play, you just go do like 10 push-ups. With that instills a fear or a distaste for athletes towards physical activity. So that's going to be bad for them in the long run. We might see them even refrain from doing physical activity and, become sedentary, just because all those negative attitudes associated with physical activity. Here we have a verse from Acts. In all things I have shown you that by working hard in this way we must help the weak, and remember the words of the Lord Jesus, and how he himself said, it is more blessed to give than to receive. I chose this Bible verse as my mission statement because of its message on serving others, especially those in need. The Lord has taught us to serve others before serving ourselves. Personally, I find the greatest reward being in the healthcare profession and aiding someone in their road to recovery and back to being whole again, restoring function, confidence, and their overall quality of life. I think it's better than money or any other reward I could receive. I don't know. Just makes me happy. Some key takeaways I found, or I want to take from this class, that I want to utilize the strategies, especially the cognitive strategies, and employ with my athletes, especially the ones going through rehab. And I also want to promote mental health counseling, as I believe mental health is on the rise as of recent years. And like I said before, we need to change that stigma of reaching out to mental health services as being weak, and we need to promote mental health as a critical component of our life. Thank you guys. Oh, here are my references. Appreciate you guys for staying around. Thanks.